Welcome to the global Warwatch network. Tensions reignite in South Asia. India claims it has eliminated 3 militants in Kashmir, linked to a brutal massacre that triggered a deadly clash with Pakistan. What does this mean for regional stability and India-Pakistan relations? Find out now. Welcome, everyone. We're about to really try and unpack a complex, unfolding geopolitical situation in Kashmir. It has significant implications well beyond just the region itself. And what's happening right now is, I think, a powerful example of how deeply intertwined history, accusation, and, well, immediate events can be.
Exactly. And for this exploration today, we've pulled together insights primarily from a recent AP News report, along with some associated briefing documents we looked at. Our aim really is to distill the most important facts and perspectives presented in these sources to help you grasp the layered narratives in this longstanding conflict and hopefully understand what's truly at stake.
Okay, so let's dive straight into the immediate headlines then, the ones that have everyone talking. India has just announced a pretty major development regarding that Pahalgam massacre from earlier this year. So on Tuesday, that's July 29, 2025, India's Home Minister Amit Shah, he stated that 3 suspected militants were killed. This was in a gunfight the day before, so Monday, July 28th, just in the outskirts of Srinagar. That's the main city in Indian-controlled Kashmir. And he specifically identified these individuals as Pakistani nationals.
Right, and that claim carries substantial weight because Shah directly linked these 3 men to the brutal April 23rd Pahalgam massacre. The evidence he cited, well, it included rifle cartridges found at the July 28th gunfight site. He asserted these matched the ones used back in the April massacre. What's also notable, and quite specific in the report, is his claim that local residents, now these were residents who had reportedly provided food and shelter before the April massacre, that these locals identified the bodies of the militants killed on Monday. Now, the source, the AP report, explicitly notes it was, quote, not clear whether the locals were considered accomplices. That's an important detail. And crucially, the AP News report itself couldn't independently verify any of these details.
Right.
Which is, a really significant point when you're considering the source of information in such a contested environment.
That immediately highlights the immense challenge, doesn't it? Getting a clear, unbiased picture. It really makes you wonder how an event, even if its details are murky, can still manage to spark such a massive escalation and so quickly. But before we get deeper into the cycle of accusations, let's just rewind a bit. Let's talk about the event that truly set all of this into motion. The Pahalgam massacre itself. Because here's where it gets really interesting. This wasn't just some standalone incident that came out of nowhere.
Yep.
On April 23, 2025, the Kashmiri resort town of Pahalgam, it was the scene of a horrific gun massacre. 26 people were killed. And most of these victims were Hindu tourists. Just an incredibly shocking and tragic incident.
Mm-hmm. And the repercussions, the fallout from that massacre, were immediate and severe, particularly for India-Pakistan relations. This wasn't just a local tragedy. Our sources clearly state it directly led to, quote, tit-for-tat military strikes between India and Pakistan.
Right, tit-for-tat.
Yeah, and this rapid escalation brought the, quote, nuclear-armed rivals to the brink of their 3rd war over the region.
The brink of war. That's serious.
Very serious. The fighting was intense. It's described as 4-day fighting, which was their worst in decades, according to the reports. And tragically, dozens of people were killed on both sides.
Wow.
The situation was only de-escalated, it seems, when a fragile ceasefire was finally reached on May 10th, 2025. And that was largely due to U.S. mediation. It really just underscores how quickly these flashpoints can ignite, can't they?
Absolutely. So you had this intense cycle of violence, then a fragile ceasefire brokered with international help, and then, bam, India announces these new killings, directly linking them back to that original massacre. Which brings us, I think, to a really pervasive issue in the Kashmir conflict, this inherent mistrust. And the widely differing narratives between India and Pakistan whenever these kinds of events happen. It's like a constant back and forth, isn't it? Almost like each side is telling a completely different story.
It absolutely is a cycle. Look, Pakistan, for its part, has consistently denied responsibility for attacks like the Pahalgam massacre. That's their standing position. And what's crucial to understand here is their long-standing counter-allegation. They've, quote, long accused India of staging gun battles in Kashmir.
Staging them.
Yes, staging them. And sometimes, they claim, pulling Pakistani prisoners out from Indian jails and killing them in, quote, faked gunfights while passing them as combatants.
Yeah.
In fact, following this very July 28th gun battle we're discussing, state-run Pakistan radio actually claimed India was planning more, quote, fake encounters, specifically targeting Pakistani nationals held in Indian prisons, though the source notes they didn't provide further details on that specific claim at the time.
Okay.
But it does raise that important question, again, about how information is perceived, how it's presented in such a contested region.
That's a key distinction, this idea of staged encounters. And naturally, on the flip side, New Delhi has, quote, regularly rejected these allegations made by Pakistan. India, in turn, has consistently, quote, accused Pakistan of sending armed militants into India and orchestrating attacks. So you just have this continuous loop, it seems. Blame and denial. Each side presenting its own version of events, its own evidence or claims of evidence, making it incredibly difficult for anyone on the outside, for you listening, to discern an objective truth.
Precisely. And at its core, the fundamental difference lies in how each side actually views the militancy itself. India consistently describes any militancy in Kashmir as, quote, Pakistan-backed terrorism. They frame it as an external threat orchestrated from across the border. Pakistan, however, flatly, quote, denies it. They insist on a different interpretation of the unrest, often framing it as an indigenous struggle. This deep-seated disagreement on the very nature of the conflict, it's a massive barrier to any kind of resolution. And it really highlights how evidence often becomes less about objective fact and more about bolstering these existing entrenched narratives.
That truly sets the stage for the complexity here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, okay, with that immediate context laid out, the massacre, the clashes, the ceasefire, this new claim, how far back do we need to zoom out really to grasp the deep roots of the Kashmir conflict? Because this isn't just about 2025 events. It's about a dispute that has shaped the geopolitical landscape of South Asia for decades.
Oh, indeed. You have to go back. At its heart, the Kashmir conflict is a core territorial dispute. It dates right back to the partition of British India in 1947. Both India and Pakistan administer parts of the Kashmir region, but crucially, they, quote, both claim the Himalayan territory in its entirety.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. This unresolved claim has been the source of immense tension, multiple wars between the two nations, both now nuclear-armed. It's turned what could be, a potentially picturesque Himalayan region into this constant dangerous flashpoint. And beyond just the territorial claims between the states, there's also a long-standing rebellion within the Indian-controlled portion of Kashmir. Militants there have been fighting New Delhi's rule, quote, since 1989. That's a long time.
Since 89, wow.
Yeah. And our sources indicate that many Muslim Kashmiris actually support the rebels' goal. Their aim is uniting the territory, quote, either under Pakistani rule or as an independent country. So there are differing goals even among those who oppose Indian rule.
I see.
This isn't some new phenomenon. It's a deeply entrenched struggle, and it has come at a staggering human cost. The sources mention, quote, tens of thousands of civilians, rebels, and government forces have been killed in the conflict. Just imagine the impact that has had on generations living there.
Tens of thousands. It's hard to even comprehend. And, something particularly notable in the lead-up to this Pahalgam massacre was what seemed like a geographical shift in the conflict, wasn't there?
That's right. It's an interesting point the sources raise.
Yeah. Before the April massacre, the reporting suggests fighting had actually, quote, largely ebbed in the region's Kashmir Valley, which has historically been the heartland of anti-India rebellion. Instead, the militant activity had, quote, mainly shifted to the mountainous areas of Jammu in the last few years. So the Pahalgam attack, happening squarely back in the valley, seems to indicate a return of significant militant activity to that central, historically volatile area.
It could well be. It could signify a strategic shift, perhaps by militant groups, maybe aiming to reignite instability in that traditional heartland, or maybe testing India's counterinsurgency capabilities in, let's say, more familiar populated territory after focusing on the mountains. It's hard to say definitively, but the location itself is significant.
Right. A significant shift or return, perhaps.
So if we try to synthesize all of this, what's really fascinating, I think, is how these immediate events, the claim of retribution, the denial, they just powerfully underscore that deeply rooted mistrust. That mistrust complicates any path, any potential path towards lasting peace. India's claim of retribution for Pahalgam While likely aiming to demonstrate decisive action against those it blames, it immediately bumps up against Pakistan's consistent denials and those counter-allegations of fake encounters.
Right, that immediate counter-narrative.
Exactly. And this cycle of non-verification, of mutual accusation, it doesn't just complicate peace efforts. You could argue it actively weaponizes information. It creates a kind of truth vacuum where each side's narrative just hardens, making diplomatic breakthroughs extraordinarily difficult.
Because the evidence itself becomes contested.
Precisely. Evidence becomes less about objective fact and more about bolstering your side's existing, entrenched claims. And it also highlights the extreme fragility of that ceasefire reached back on May 10th. The potential for renewed conflict between these nuclear powers over Kashmir, it's persistent. It feels very real, given the volatility and how easily these accusations escalate tensions.
Exactly. So thinking about our listeners, why should you care about these ongoing tensions? It might seem like a distant conflict. Well, think about the global and regional geopolitical significance here. You have two nuclear-armed rivals, India and Pakistan, constantly on edge over this disputed territory. Any significant escalation, like those tit-for-tat strikes we saw after Pahalgam, it really has a potential for far wider consequences than just within their borders. We're talking about potential disruptions to global trade routes, the risk of a major humanitarian crisis if things spiral, and frankly, the significant role international bodies and other major powers would inevitably be forced to play in yet another de-escalation effort.
Which takes resources and attention away from other global issues, too.
Absolutely. So it's a situation that really demands global attention and understanding, not just because it's complex, but because of its potential ripple effects across the world. Well, this exploration has certainly, I hope, given us all a clear understanding of the complex situation unfolding in Kashmir. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, of how deeply embedded historical narratives can shape present-day conflicts, and also how crucial critical verification is when we're trying to understand the full truth, or as close as we can get, of any situation like this. So something perhaps for you to consider. What are your thoughts on how these cycles of accusation and counter-accusation actually perpetuate the conflict? Does one feed the other inevitably? We'd love to hear what stands out to you from this discussion. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and do join us on social media. All the links you need are provided right there in the description.